6:22 a.m. November 14th, Norfolk, Virginia. 14 NCIS special agents moved through the parking structure of Naval Station Norfolk, engines off, vehicles coasting into position on the lower deck. Their breath fogged in the cold air, no radio chatter, hand signals only. Total estimated value of compromised intelligence, $5.8 million in verified cryptocurrency trend. Strike group routing windows, refueling schedules, minesweeper deployment positions, all of it sold. The man they were looking for had already badged into his office 20 minutes earlier. He had a coffee on his desk, a photo of his daughter on the wall, a spotless 18-year career in Navy logistics. His name was Lieutenant Commander David Reyes. The anomaly that brought 14 federal agents to his door had started not with a wiretap, not with an informant, but with a single fueling timestamp in a maintenance log that should not have existed. The USS Ronald Reagan Carrier Strike Group was scheduled to transit the Strait of Hormuz in late January 2026. The deployment itself was not secret. Carrier group transits rarely are. What was secret was everything around it. The precise routing windows, the timing of escort vessel positioning, the locations where the strike group's minesweeper assets would be operating during the approach. That information did not belong to the public. It did not belong to allied governments. It belonged to a classified operational planning process inside Naval Station Norfolk, and to the officers cleared to handle it. David Reyes was one of those officers. He held a top-secret clearance. He had worked logistics for the Atlantic Fleet for 11 years before moving to strike group planning. His evaluation described him as methodical, thorough, and exceptionally reliable under pressure. He had received a Navy Commendation Medal in 2022, no disciplinary history, no known financial problems, no foreign travel that triggered concern. By every institutional measure, he was exactly the kind of officer the Navy trusted with its most sensitive operational data. The first thing that did not fit came on the morning of October 3, 2025. A petty officer second class named Marcus Webb was conducting a routine audit of fuel consumption logs for the strike group's assigned destroyer, the USS Carney. The Carney had been in port for scheduled maintenance. Webb was cross-referencing maintenance records against the fuel system log when he found an entry that stopped him. October 1, 2025. A fueling event logged against the Carney's port side intake. The Carney had been in dry dock since September 28. Its fuel systems had been fully disconnected as part of the maintenance protocol. The ship could not physically receive fuel on that date. The timestamp existed, the event code existed. The operator ID field was populated with a credential number. Webb flagged it to his supervisor as a likely data entry error and moved on. His supervisor noted it in the daily discrepancy log and forwarded it to the base systems maintenance team. It should have ended there. It did not end there. The systems maintenance team reviewed the entry on October 7th and determined it was not a software error. The record had been created manually. Someone with authorized access to the Navy's logistics management system had opened the Carney's maintenance record and entered a fuel event that had not occurred. The question was simple: why would anyone do that? One possibility was clerical confusion, an operator entering data into the wrong vessel record. It happened. Systems personnel pulled the credential number attached to the entry and ran it. The credential belonged to Lieutenant Commander David Reyes. Reyes had no assigned role in the Carney's maintenance cycle. He was a strike group logistics planner. His duties involved scheduling, routing, and coordination across the group's assets. He had no operational reason to be in a destroyer's fuel maintenance log at 11:47 p.m. on a Wednesday. The discrepancy report moved up one level then another. By October 10th, it had reached Commander Karen Holt, head of the Naval Station Norfolk Administrative Security Office. Holt read the report twice. She did not treat it as a data entry error she called NCIS. Naval Criminal Investigative Service opened a preliminary inquiry that same afternoon. Not a full investigation yet, that designation required more. A preliminary inquiry which authorized a limited review of Reyes's access logs for the preceding 90 days. What the access log review returned over the next 5 days was not what anyone expected. Reyes had accessed 17 separate classified logistics documents between August 1st and September 30th, 2025. That number was not unusual for his role, the pattern was. 12 of the 17 documents were accessed outside normal duty hours. 8 of those were accessed between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. 3 were accessed on weekends when Reyes was not scheduled for duty. 4 documents were accessed, then accessed again within 20 minutes, then closed. The pattern suggested the documents were being read, copied, or photographed and closed. Hence elevated the case to a full counterintelligence investigation on October 16, 2025. A 5-agent team was assigned. The team lead was Special Agent Patricia Drummond, a 15-year NCIS counterintelligence veteran with prior experience in espionage cases involving foreign military contractors. Her team included 2 financial analysts, a technical surveillance specialist, and a liaison officer from the Defense Intelligence Agency. They had 1 anomalous timestamp, 1 unusual access pattern, and no direct evidence of any foreign contact. They worked the gap. The first phase was financial. Drummond requested a full financial review of Reyes's accounts, checking, savings, investment accounts under his name and his wife's name. They subpoenaed records without Reyes's knowledge under a Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act order. The review took 3 weeks. On the surface, the accounts were unremarkable: a mortgage, 2 car payments, a moderate savings account. Nothing that suggested unexplained wealth, but they had been looking at the wrong accounts. On November 2, 2025, the dial liaison identified a blockchain wallet address that had received 11 inbound transfers over a 14-month period. The wallet had been flagged 2 years earlier in a separate intelligence context, a network of cryptocurrency addresses linked to an ERG-C financial facilitation cell operating through front companies in the UAE. Total received into that wallet, $5.8 million, distributed across 11 transfers ranging from $180. The final transfer had occurred on September 28, 2025, 3 days before the anomalous fuel log timestamp. The wallet was not in Reyes's name, nothing connected it to him directly. But Drummond's team had been given access to a classified NSA signals collection product that included metadata on outbound communications from Naval Station Norfolk. A pattern emerged. On the same dates as 9 of the 11 cryptocurrency transfers, a burner phone had transmitted encrypted messages from a location within 2 miles of Reyes' home address in Chesapeake, Virginia. The burner phone had never transmitted from the same tower twice. It had never been used for voice calls, only encrypted data packets. On 3 of those 9 dates, Reyes' government vehicle transponder placed him within the same 2-mile radius. This was still circumstantial, no single element constituted proof. But the totality was enough to justify the next phase. The surveillance team had built a picture from fragments. 11 transfers, 14 months, a burner phone that moved like a ghost. But they didn't yet know what Reyes had actually handed over. And they needed to know if any of it had made it to Tehran. The answer to both questions was already inside the Pentagon. NCIS counterintelligence requested a damage assessment review from the Office of Naval Intelligence on November 5, 2025. The assessment would map every classified document Reyes had accessed against known Iranian military operational behavior in the Strait of Hormuz region over the same period. The assessment took 11 days to complete. The lead ONI analyst submitted a 12-page classified summary. 3 pages were immediately reclassified at a higher compartment level and restricted to a 4-person distribution list. The unclassified summary said this: the routing windows and escort positioning data Reyes had accessed between August and September 2025 corresponded with observable changes in ERG naval patrol patterns in the Hormuz approaches. Specifically, patrol craft operating under the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy had altered their transit timing on 4 occasions to avoid projected carrier group approach corridors. The adjustments were small, tactically insignificant in isolation, but they were consistent with an adversary that had advanced knowledge of the strike group's intended routing. The ERG had been reading the carrier group's schedule. What they had been reading came from Reyes. At this point, Drummond faced a decision that would define the entire investigation. She had enough to arrest Reyes. The financial links, the access pattern, the signals correlation, the ONI damage assessment, the cumulative case was strong. She could move, but the strike group was already in preparation for its January transit. If she arrested Reyes now, whoever was running him in Tehran would know the operation was compromised. They would adapt. The full scope of what had been passed and whether other sources existed would never be known. The decision went up the chain. On November 8, 2025, the director of NCIS, in consultation with the Deputy Secretary of Defense, authorized a controlled engagement operation. Reyes would not be arrested. He would be monitored and, wherever possible, fed sanitized or modified information to track how it traveled. What no one said aloud but everyone understood: the USS Ronald Reagan was still going through the strait. If the operation failed, if Reyes detected surveillance, or if Tehran received real operational data through a channel the team hadn't identified, the consequences would be measured in lives. If you've followed a case this far into the evidence and still not subscribed to this channel, subscribe now. The next phase is where the operation nearly collapsed. The controlled engagement operation ran from November 10th through December 28, 2025, 7 weeks. During that period, Reyes continued his normal duties. He attended briefings, he submitted logistics reports. He requested access to documents through standard classified network protocols. NCIS counterintelligence monitored every keystroke, every access request, every minute his badge was in a classified area. The technical surveillance team had placed a hardware intercept on the workstation in Reyes' office. Everything he viewed or copied was logged in real time. A separate team monitored physical surveillance, not following him directly, which risked detection, but maintaining observation on known dead drop locations and phone transmission zones. The first test of the controlled operation came on November 19, 2025. Reyes accessed a logistics document containing projected refueling coordinates for the strike group during its Red Sea transit leg. The document had been modified by ONI before distribution. The coordinates were real locations, but had been shifted by a calculated margin. Close enough to appear authentic, different enough that any adversary acting on them would position assets incorrectly. 4 days later, NSA collected signals indicating Iranian patrol coordination in a zone that matched the modified coordinates, not the real ones. The information was traveling. The channel was confirmed. This also confirmed something the team had suspected but not yet proven. The transmission method was not a dead drop or a face-to-face meeting. Reyes was photographing documents at his workstation and transmitting the images directly. The burner phone was somewhere close. The timing between document access and NSA-detected transmission suggested a gap of 4 to 6 hours. The technical team reviewed physical security footage from the parking structure adjacent to Reyes' office building. On November 19th at 9:22 p.m., 6 hours after Reyes had accessed the modified document, a vehicle matching Reyes' personal car had been parked in a corner of the lot for 41 minutes. That corner was a cellular blind spot for the base's internal network. It was not a blind spot for a commercial carrier. He had been sitting in his car, transmitting from a personal device, in a spot chosen specifically because it sat outside the base's own monitoring perimeter. The operational security discipline was significant. This was not improvisation. Someone had taught him exactly where to stand, exactly how long to wait, exactly which corner of which parking lot fell outside the base's signal envelope. That knowledge did not come from the internet. It came from a professional. On December 4, 2025, NCIS received a classified communication from a partner intelligence service that added a new dimension to the case. The surveillance operation had confirmed the channel and the method. It had confirmed that Tehran was reading what Reyes sent. But the partner service communication contained a single detail that changed the geometry of the investigation entirely. The ERG handler working the Reyes account had a name. The partner service had identified the handler as a senior ERG CQF intelligence officer operating under commercial cover at a trading company registered in Dubai. The officer had been active in agent recruitment operations targeting U.S. military personnel for at least 6 years. He had previously run a recruitment operation against a contractor with U.S. Central Command that resulted in a classified prosecution in 2022. His operational profile suggested he did not work alone. He operated within a cell structure. If he was running Reyes, he likely had access to at least one additional source within the U.S. military or defense community. The investigation now had a second open question. Who else was feeding Tehran? Drummond's team brought that question to the Defense Counterintelligence and Security Agency. DISA began a parallel review of cleared personnel with access to the same document sets as Reyes. The review would take months and was still ongoing when the operation against Reyes moved to its terminal phase. What do you think? Was this a failure of the security clearance system? Or was this exactly the kind of case the system is designed to catch? Drop it in the comments. December 28, 2025. The controlled operation concluded not by design but by necessity. A routine security audit flagged that Reyes had access to a specific set of documents outside his job description. Documents relating to the minesweeper positioning schedule for the Hormuz transit. The flag was automated. It generated a notification to Reyes' commanding officer. If that notification was delivered without coordination with the NCIS investigation, Reyes would know he had been caught. He would have hours to destroy the burner phone, sanitize his home, and contact his handler. Drummond had 40 minutes from the moment she received the alert to either intercept the notification or move to arrest. The technical team attempted to block the automated notification at the network level. They reached the base systems administrator on a personal cell phone. The administrator needed authorization from his chain of command to block the notification, a process that normally required hours. They had 40 minutes. The authorization came through at 37 minutes. The notification was intercepted and held, but the window for controlled operations had closed. Every hour Reyes remained free now increased the risk that something else would trigger his awareness. Drummond requested authorization to move to arrest. Authorization was granted at 11:58 p.m. on December 28, 2025. The arrest operation was scheduled for January 6, 2026, a Monday, when Reyes would arrive at the base at his normal time. 14 agents, 2 vehicles positioned in the parking structure, 2 more on the main access road, 1 at the administrative building entrance. The agents had been briefed the night before and told to arrive in civilian vehicles, staggered by 12 minutes each, to avoid pattern detection by base security cameras that could conceivably be accessed through the same network Reyes had exploited. 14 agents waited in the cold dark of a Virginia January morning. They had spent 11 weeks building a case from a single wrong timestamp. And now the man who had sold a carrier group's secrets for $5.8 million was pulling into the parking structure. The question no one could answer yet: how much of what he passed was already in use, and was there a second source? 6:22 a.m. January 6, 26, Naval Station, Norfolk. David Reyes badged through the main gate at 6:19 a.m. His vehicle was tracked by 2 surveillance units from the gate to the parking structure. He parked on the second level. He stepped out of his vehicle carrying a coffee thermos and a laptop bag. Special Agent Drummond was standing 6 feet from his driver's side door. Reyes looked at her. Then at the agents moving in from both ends of the structure. Then back at Drummond. He said nothing. He put down the laptop bag. He put his hands behind his head without being asked. That detail would appear in every subsequent account of the arrest. He didn't run. He didn't argue. He complied immediately, as if he had been waiting for the moment to arrive. The search of Reyes' vehicle recovered 2 burner phones sealed inside a vacuum food storage bag taped to the underside of the passenger seat. Both phones were forensically intact. Neither had been wiped. The simultaneous search of his home recovered a laptop not registered to the Navy or to any of Reyes' known accounts. The laptop was encrypted with a commercial-grade encryption application. His digital forensics teams began work on it immediately. They also found in a fireproof lockbox in the master bedroom closet a prepaid debit card registered to a shell company with a UAE address and a balance of $11,400. The card was linked to an account that had been used to purchase the vacuum storage bags, the burner phones, and a series of encrypted messaging application subscriptions over the previous 14 months. Every purchase was consistent with a methodical tradecraft protocol, nothing improvised. The digital forensics work on the encrypted laptop took 19 days. When the encryption was broken on January 25, 2026, investigators found the operational record of the entire scheme. Reyes had maintained a file structure on the encrypted laptop that cataloged every document he had photographed and transmitted. The files were organized by date and by category: routing data, refueling schedules, minesweeper positions, escort vessel assignments. Each category folder contained both the original photograph and a separate text file with a brief notation in Farsi. Reyes did not speak Farsi. The notations had been generated by a translation application and copied in. The notations were not dramatic, they were operational. Date, document type. A confidence rating the handler had apparently requested. A brief summary of the document's content. Nothing about motivations, nothing personal. It was a filing system, clean, functional, professional. The catalog covered 14 months of active operation, 43 separate document packages transmitted. The routing windows for 3 separate carrier group deployments. Minesweeper positioning data for 2 Hormuz transit scenarios. Refueling coordinates for the Red Sea transit leg of the Reagan strike group. Total estimated intelligence value, assessed by ONI as among the most significant naval operational compromises of the preceding decade. The $5.8 million in cryptocurrency was the handler's accounting of that value. Reyes was charged on January 28, 2026 with espionage under 18 U.S.C. Paragraph 794, unlawful transmission of national defense information and accessing classified computer systems without authorization. The charges were filed in the Eastern District of Virginia. The arrest had been clean, the evidence was comprehensive. The case file was a prosecutor's archive. But the investigation brief that landed on the Deputy Secretary of Defense's desk on January 30, 2026, contained 2 sections that would not become public. One addressed damage to the Reagan strike group transit. The other addressed what the NCIS investigation still did not know. The USS Ronald Reagan had completed its Hormuz transit on January 22, 2026, 14 days before Reyes's arrest. The transit had been modified based on intelligence indicating Iranian awareness of the original routing. The modifications had been coordinated through Ensign ONI starting in November. The strike group passed through without incident. The modified routing had been specifically designed to move the group through corridors Reyes had never had access to. The URG had positioned assets in the zones his documents described. Those zones had been empty. The operation had, in a direct sense, worked. What had not been resolved was the question of the second source. The DCA parallel review of cleared personnel with overlapping document access had not produced a result by the time of Reyes's arrest. The review was ongoing. The URG handler identified by the partner service was assessed as still operational. His Dubai-based commercial cover remained active. Whether he was running another asset inside the U.S. defense community was unknown. In the federal courtroom in Alexandria, Virginia, the case against David Reyes proceeded with the efficiency that strong documentary evidence produces. The prosecution's case rested on 3 pillars: the digital forensics from the encrypted laptop, the financial records linking the UAE shell company debit card to Reyes's purchases, and the NSA signals correlation demonstrating that modified documents Reyes accessed appeared in URG coordination patterns within days. The defense offered no alternative explanation for the laptop. No alternative explanation for the cryptocurrency transfers. No alternative explanation for the burner phones, the vacuum storage bag under the passenger seat of his car. On March 12, 2026, a federal jury deliberated for 6 hours before returning a verdict of guilty on all counts. Sentencing was scheduled for May 19, 2026. Before sentencing, the prosecution presented the court with a classified damage assessment summary, a version redacted for courtroom use. The summary described the compromise as covering 3 carrier group deployments, 43 document packages, and intelligence products assessed as directly informing URG naval planning during a period of elevated Hormuz tensions. The defense presented 37 letters of support from fellow officers, family members, and a chaplain. They described a man who had served faithfully for 18 years. They asked the court to consider the totality of a life. Judge Margaret Okafor read both submissions. She sentenced David Reyes to 31 years in federal prison without possibility of parole. He was taken into custody immediately. He did not speak before sentencing. He had not spoken publicly at any point since his arrest. The $5.8 million in cryptocurrency was partially recovered through international cooperation with financial intelligence units in multiple jurisdictions. The initial 11 transfers totaled $5.8. Investigators traced $4.1 million to wallets that were seized or frozen. The remaining $1.7 million had already moved through a series of mixing transactions and could not be fully traced. The prepaid debit card recovered from the lockbox had a balance of $11,400. The accounts it was linked to held nothing else of significance. The URG handler identified in the partner service communication was not charged in the U.S. proceedings. His location outside U.S. jurisdiction made formal prosecution impossible. As of the date of Reyes's sentencing, he remained at large. His commercial cover in Dubai was dissolved in February 2026, but Allied intelligence services had not located him. The DCA review of personnel with overlapping access to the document sets Reyes had compromised was still ongoing at the time of sentencing. No second source had been publicly identified. 43 document packages, 14 months. 18 years of service traded for a cryptocurrency wallet that now holds nothing. There is no clean conclusion to how it started. Marcus Webb, the petty officer who found the fueling timestamp, was not present at the sentencing. He had transferred to Naval Air Station Pensacola in December 2025. He submitted a routine discrepancy report and moved on with his day. He had no idea what it triggered. A carrier group transited the Strait of Hormuz and came back. The routes it used were not the ones on the laptop under the passenger seat. The handler is somewhere. The system that produced Reyes, the clearance process, the access controls, the after-hours monitoring gaps that allowed 11 weeks of document photography to go undetected, was still under internal review at the time this account was compiled. What the investigation confirmed is narrower than any systemic lesson. One wrong timestamp in a maintenance log reached the right desk, and someone treated it as more than an error. That's the entire margin. One discrepancy, one decision to look closer. If this investigation raises questions about how much moves undetected before something like that comes along, subscribe. The next case starts in a federal building where the anomaly was smaller. Was one officer's betrayal an isolated failure of character, or a sign that the access structure itself creates the conditions? Drop a comment, we read everyone. The USS Ronald Reagan is currently on deployment. The investigation continues.